this story, at first, seems kind of straightforward. A bunch of black people go into an Asian restaurant and rob the place on video. But it turns out that is where the story just begins to get interesting.
Well, Glenda, the three suspects walked right through this door here, but they didn't order any food. Instead, they brazenly stole the tips right off the tip jar on the counter here, and we have video of it. Great video. It was all caught on surveillance. The three-headed suspects again walked up to the counter. They asked for to-go menus, and again, instead of ordering, they make off with the cash. The employees barely have time to react before the three people are gone. They say it was probably only about $40, not a lot, but a whole night's worth of work. And they aren't holding any grudges. They're hopeful other restaurants and businesses in the area are on alert.
We just want them to be aware of stuff like this is happening.
If you've ever met anybody like Mr. Noor Lee at this Asian restaurant, I think it's a Thai restaurant, then you would know these are the people that work 7 days a week, 14 hours a day, family businesses. Nobody ever complains. They're happy to be able to do it. They save a little bit this month, save a little bit next month. A couple of years, they all have a house. An immaculate house in a nice neighborhood. But Mr. Noor Lee, you might be biting off more than you can chew when you talk about alerting your neighbors to the presence of black people robbing your business. Maybe you didn't see this article from the Washington Post recently, because that's the idea they had in Georgetown. Large groups of black people were going into Georgetown clothing stores and restaurants and shishi shops. They were robbing, threatening, intimidating, stealing. So they got this. So the people down there said, hey, why don't we figure out a way where we can let each other know when this is happening, because the same people are coming back and doing it over and over again, or they start at one store and then they just go on up and do a lot of stores. So let's set up some kind of alert system. That's what they did. They got an app where you could, put in a description, boom, put out an alert, boom. All of a sudden, everybody else in your shopping area, all the other merchants, get the information. The Washington Post did not like that, because it turns out that almost all of the complaints about people who were robbing, threatening, stealing, assaulting, acting out, well, almost all the complaints involved black people. The Washington Post did not like that. And of course, don't forget this little episode from the same kind of problem and solution and reaction in the Bay Area up in San Francisco.
There's an app for that, but that app is leading to problems. New at 6, it was supposed to give BART riders a discreet way to report crime and security threats, but an investigation into the year-old BART app seems to show riders are mostly using it to complain and actually targeting certain people. NBC Bay Area's Mark Matthews is at the Embarcadero station in San Francisco with the details. Mark.
Well, Raj, what the East Bay Express found when they looked at this app from BART called AppWatch is that while ridership on BART is roughly 10% African American, the African American riders are the subject of about 70% of the complaints that identify race. The app gives BART riders the ability to report a whole host of things with the touch of a button.
We want our riders to use this to report progress, things like that.
But when the East Bay Express filed a Freedom of Information request to get just 1 month's worth of BART Watch alerts, what the reporter found was the overwhelming majority of alerts to BART police were complaints about African Americans and the homeless.
Well, that's our riders. We can't control what they report back.
Trost insists the app is doing what it was intended to do. She points us to this pie chart of alerts. But we've taken all of the alerts that relate to crime and put them in red, and then, if you drill down into those, you'll find crime alerts about people sleeping, or smelling bad, or drinking a beer on the train. Reporter Darwin Bondgram tells me out of the 763 alerts between April and May, only a handful were for crimes that would have called for an officer to investigate.
Security, we'd rather we have that one that was successful and then deal with the 100 that is just basically junk mail.
But at the Ella Baker Center for Human Rights, Executive Director Zachary Norris says the app isn't just a harmless tool. He believes it's promoting racial discrimination.
I think the way in which this app furthers racial profiling is by giving people an additional tool to do racial profiling.
He says the $265,000 could have been much better spent.
Look, I know the reporter on the story is a very busy guy, but somehow he forgot to tell his viewers how we documented that large groups of black people get on the BART trains and they move from town to town. It's like a mass transit system for criminals. I mean, there's one town up there called San Leandro. We talk about that and Don't Make the Black Kids Angry. I mean, it's just a regular old middle-class town with a BART station. One day people look up on a shopping center I've been to, look up and there are hundreds of black kids rampaging through the shopping center. Cops show up. Where'd those kids go? Oh, they headed towards the BART station. A lot of that going on. A lot of bad stuff's going on in Washington, D.C. We just did a story about the Marine hero who was assaulted in Washington. Now here's the punchline of Washington. It was a couple blocks from the White House. So this Marine hero of Fallujah, Bronze Star, he is assaulted, knocked out, kicked in the face, robbed at a McDonald's. Washington Post does a story on it, and over 100 people wrote comments saying they did not believe it happened because black people just don't do that kind of stuff. Whatever. This is Colin Flaherty. If you're ever down in Washington, D.C., or out on the BART train, or if you're visiting, or if you're thinking about, or if you're an Asian immigrant and you're thinking about opening up your own little restaurant so you can achieve the American dream, I hope you'll lighten up on the MSG. And I hope you don't forget, don't make the black kids angry.